Another Q&A? All right.
You ask them, I'll answer them. I really appreciate the comments. They are making this so much fun. I really am. I can't believe I'm enjoying doing this as much as I am. Sometimes I'm working from the disadvantage of an excess of knowledge, which, you know, woes me, but I'll gloss over something and I leave it up to you to keep me honest, and I'm an open book. Let's get right into this. First question, and by the way, if you like this, shoot a comment down below. I can put these into the store. Anyways, could you recommend a good reference book for someone who would like to build a guitar? There's a lot of great reference books out there. You know, you can get the Santos book on the website. You can get the Friedrichs book on the website. If you want this one, also on the website, this has a ton of info because on every single page, you get well, not every page, but every guitar page, you get a set of specs, you get a bracing pattern layout, and in the back, you get thickness maps. Besides having a lot of great photos in it, is a great one to have. But where all of this started with my father was with this book, How to Make a Classic Guitar by Joseph Wallow. It's a lengthy tome. It's almost 30 pages. This is a no-nonsense how to make a guitar from start to finish, and I truly appreciate this very first thing. After the table of contents and a picture of one of Joseph Wallow's guitars is a large diatribe, we'll call it a diatribe, of proper humidity control, which is why my father's guitars almost never crack, my guitars almost never crack, and why a lot of the modern guitars almost never crack, because we're always beating the drum about proper humidity control. So, you know, you don't have to go out and buy crazy books right off the bat. Rush out to your local used book dealer on the internet to see if you can find this one. And if you have this, you can, well, get to this. So that's a great place to start with the books. From the How to String a Classical Guitar, do you recommend the same method of string stretching for electric guitars or steel string acoustic guitars as well? Referencing to the point where I say to tune the guitar up a half a step instead of pulling on it to get your strings to stretch out. Maybe. That depends on your guitar, it depends on the tension of your strings, and it depends on your scale length. For the most part, those guitars don't stretch out nearly as much. So, and the first strings are generally fairly close to the breaking point of the tensile strength and load carrying capacity of that string. I would say if you do that, keep it only to the lower strings or the wound strings. I would not necessarily do it for the first and second or unwound strings. And maybe only a quarter step, maybe. But I think with all those caveats, I guess my really long answer short is no, I don't recommend it, because I don't want to say yes and then have you break a bunch of strings and say, well, Marshall said to do it. Don't blame me. You'll know when it's about to break. Use your head. Question next. From the YouTube short showing my guitars in the glass cabinets. Do you keep all those guitars at a specific tension, or do I leave the strings as loose as possible? I keep all of my guitars at tension. Always. The reason being is they were designed to do that. They were designed to be under tension. If they can't handle the tension, they're not a good guitar. I don't like to cycle the wood between tension and untension and tension and untension. I find that when you take a guitar down and then bring it back up to tension, it takes a little bit longer for it to warm up and to start functioning as a guitar, or as a guitar should sound, because it's not in tune with the room. Great instruments, or even okay instruments, are always going to be vibrating and doing something in response to the sounds around it. So If you're taking your guitar down, it will still be vibrating sympathetically to the room, but not nearly as much because that is getting amplified through the strings. So yes, I keep all of my guitars at pitch, typically A440, within a couple cents, and I've never had any issues. And I can even say to the point that as a violinist, I keep my violins at pitch, and my everyday violin is from 1710, and my backup violin is from 1692, and those have been in use almost constantly. So no ill effects there. Just keep your guitars at pitch. Your strings will thank you, and your guitar and your enjoyment will thank you as well. Question next. Do you wind the E strings out towards the tuners and then wind the remaining strings towards the middle of the headstock? Yes. I know that was it Yamaha and a couple others say to take the third and fourth string and wind it outwards, creating a more severe angle off of the nut. I personally like to, well, it depends on the design of the guitar, really, with the angle of the head slots and the width. For most modern guitars that have a fairly good size string slot, I like to wind the first and sixth strings outward towards the tuners, so that way you have a straighter line from the nut into the ramps, and then however the ramps fall, obviously for the second and fifth string, the third and fourth, I'll make the determination on either winding it in towards the center of the head or out, depending on if they are going to bind. But ideally, I'm trying to keep the strings as straight as possible off of the nut, so that way you don't get any binding or jumping or anything like that, because especially on the bass strings. So that keeps it fairly simple. Your mileage may vary with the direction of the third and fourth strings, but yes, keep the strings as straight as possible off of the nut. Great question. What are the benefits of a double body? Specifically referring to that 1908 Manuel Ramirez, which I showed in a short. I'm speculating here because I wasn't in the room. I believe that the intention was to keep the vibrational portion of the guitar away from the body, so that way, although this wasn't as big of a problem back then, to keep that off of you. So that way you have a vibrational object pushing sound out. But I believe that there may have been a potential thought of using it to help project more sound outward, because there is a secondary sound hole in the back of the first body, the inner body. I think that the notion was that the sound escapes that box in both directions and becomes an amplified megahorn on a less resonant exterior, which is why the inner body is essentially a flamenco guitar, and the exterior body is, flamenco guitar with cypress and spruce on the back, and then having a rosewood body to help reflect the sound. That's my thought. I couldn't say for sure, but as somebody who's listened to it and played it a bit, it definitely has a lot more presence in front than it does behind. So I think it was partially to project out along with isolating the guitar. Thank you for that great question. Enrico PG2, beautiful shop. Thanks. It's often chaotic, but a lot of thought actually did go into the layout and design, as well as some of the features. We've got electricity that runs through the floor that pops up underneath the benches, so we don't have to run as many power lines and 220 at every station, and we've got basically everything where we want it to be, and nothing where it doesn't. And with LED lights everywhere and insulation on the ceiling, it really keeps the humidity stable, which makes my job of keeping the guitars happy a lot easier. So thank you. We spent a lot of time designing this, so that way it just works. Those are your questions. You asked it, I answered it. What more could we ask for? Except I'm going to ask you for more questions, and like, subscribe. If you like this, please consider supporting me on Patreon. It really does help make this possible. Keep building, keep asking those questions, and I love all this. Thank you so much. See you next time.